Hi, everyone. I'm Natalie Gochner, and this is Both Sides of the Aisle. I represent the political middle and have on the political right John Dougal.
Hey, great to be with you.
And on the political left...
We are all here. We even have Anthony, our producer, with us today.
In studio. And on the political left, Shireen Gorbani.
Hello and hi, listeners. So glad you're tuning in.
Oh, wow. Should we start with Kamala Harris and the VP pick? What do you think?
Yeah, it feels...
Do you know who the VP
By
pick
the
is?
time this airs, everyone will know, but we're still questioning.
Yes, yeah.
Leading candidates, Josh Shapiro, Mark Kelly, Andy Beshear, Pete Buttigieg. Is it Tim Walz?
Yeah.
With Minnesota?
Yep.
Governors and a cabinet member, Shireen.
Yes, yeah. So I think these are really interesting. It's an interesting mix of candidates. I will say it does make me reflect back on the choice of J.D. Vance as well. When we think about, I would say just the lack of strategy that seemed to be deployed in the decision of Vance. It didn't feel like an opportunity to expand the electorate. I think we've talked a little bit about how Nikki Haley would have been a much more compelling choice, or even Tim Scott, who I think Trump maybe is not super politically aligned with, but to think about that in terms of pulling in an electorate, though there's quite a bit that says...
You're thinking that the VP pick adds diversity, adds inclusion?
Yeah, but what they're saying is that often VP picks do very little for a candidate. So what I think this comes down to is, who is somebody that she trusts, that she can work well with, that maybe brings a bit of a different perspective than her own. As a person who came up as an attorney general, Andy Beshear, who's on the short list, also came through that path. I don't know if it always helps to have people that kind of have the same trajectory. Mark Kelly certainly comes with military experience. Having been to space, I think is cool. Tim Walz was in Congress, was a teacher, is I think an interesting and compelling choice. So I think somebody who brings some... Yes, diversity to the ticket, but then also brings a sense of perhaps coming from a different professional political path.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite?
Ooh, well, I think listeners know a little bit that I have connections to Minnesota. I am a Tim Walz fan. I think he is doing really incredible work on behalf of Minnesotans, enshrining rights, making sure kids are fed, making sure that they have access to a wide, a variety of books that they're reading. But more than that, advancing policies that have reduced child poverty in that state. I think that's exciting.
You don't think he's kind of weird?
I'm certain he's not. Yeah, I think he's really wonderful. I know that it's not your party, but, if you are thinking about this ticket, who would you like to see?
Well, I want to deepen the plot a little bit, John, and just ask you, you're an elected official, in a statewide role. How would you...
Still for another 5 months.
Well, how would you weigh, the political advantages of a pick versus your chemistry, your connection with the candidate? Which would be more important to you?
For me personally, I'd be looking to see chemistry. Is this somebody I think could be president? Is this somebody I could work with? Is this somebody I could delegate
especially
assignments?
when the evidence shows they don't really help that much on the, the swing state issues.
Because
and things.
I would want somebody who's going to be an active participant. But I can see for others, it's whatever it takes to win, round out the ticket, however it helps to get that majority coalition, to get the victory, and you'll put them out to...
So not
pasture.
your party, but answer Shireen's question.
So who would I pick? I would probably pick Mark Kelly. I get that she's looking at a whole bunch of white guys, but I just think the Western connection, the military background, the going to space, and all that brings a certain gravitas that doesn't already exist in the race.
Yeah, and don't forget, I mean, I don't know that this will matter to you, but his wife is Gabby Giffords.
Yes.
So also an incredibly deep commitment to gun reform, to gun safety. I think that's a really compelling counterpoint, I would say, to where, for example, J.D. Vance is.
Yeah, and stuff. And so that's clearly an issue I have concerns with, but his wife went through a tragic shooting, and so I understand how they both feel passionately and concerned about that issue. I'm impressed with Josh Shapiro. I think it's sad that there's so much debate that he is, quote unquote, too Jewish to be on the ticket, and that's a step too far. And I think that's a travesty.
Totally
in America, I don't care which party it is. I just think that is a travesty to just think that somebody of that faith and that belief would somehow be considered ineligible at this point in our history.
Yeah.
So I'm with you, John, in the side that I would pick the person I had the most sort of confidence in that we could work well together, that we've got chemistry, so to speak. it's interesting as I reflect upon the second in command in governor's offices, the governor and the lieutenant governor. They often have a complicated relationship. Has that been your experience, John? Just watching it. Yeah. I mean, it seems like Governor Cox and L.G. Henderson, they seem to do really fine together, but the staffs are where I've typically seen the tension. So, and I didn't see, if I go back to Mike Levitt and Aline Walker, I didn't see like this really close, intimate connection a partnership in terms of that. At least from my perspective. Now, granted, I was only in office a year or so. Yeah. I thought they were masterful together, what they did, but they were very different in the way they approached things. But that was cool. It was a yin and yang kind of thing. Andy Beshear, who I'm going to go with, Shireen. Yeah. He's a little bit of a dark horse for me, but he's quite a foil to J.D. Vance. And I don't want to lose the Senate seat, for Mark Kelly. And I love Buttigieg, but I think he can do just as well on the campaign trail as he can on the ticket. I think Tim Walz seems pretty interesting. I just don't know him very well. And I don't know Josh Shapiro well either. I didn't know him till this. Yeah. I've never heard of him. Yeah. People say I thought he did quite well coming out of the shooting there in Pennsylvania, and his reaction, his response. And star. Maturity. A star. A lot to happen there. Okay, I want to ask you both. So let's just talk about momentum in the race. And Kamala Harris, she's got now the United Auto Workers Union endorsement. She's going to be campaigning. Despite their president speaking at the Republican convention.
Their president did not. That was the Teamsters.
Sorry, the Teamsters.
Yeah.
You're right.
But
you're
still,
right. Yes.
But you've got unions, going both ways a little bit. Yeah. But so again, on the momentum theme, Harris is going to be in Detroit this week, next week. She's out there. She's got energy and youthfulness. And meanwhile, you've got the former president, Donald Trump, going to the Black Journalists Conference and bringing up this issue about how she's East Indian and not black. Yeah. You wonder how he can ever surprise you, but it still surprised me. The gall to go to that setting and make that point.
Yeah. And I would just remind listeners that this is the nominee that has been endorsed by our Governor Cox, who also believes that we should disagree better. So Donald Trump shows up on this stage and is asked, a number of pointed questions. They were not given a lot of time. And so journalists know that they have to move quickly. This is a Black Journalists Association. So I think that this decision was probably made before Kamala Harris was the presumptive nominee for the Democratic Party. The things that he could say, I actually think some of the most disturbing things that he said included that immigrants are coming to take black jobs and then refuse to define what a black job is. I will say Simone Biles, in a true masterstroke, did tweet out, "I love my black job," in response to all of this. But
you think she nailed her landing?
Yeah, she nailed it on that one. Absolutely. Gold medal.
It's so crazy to think, is she black? Is she Indian? It's like, she's both.
Yeah, but this is the person, Donald Trump is the person who really started the birther conversation around Barack Obama not being born in this country. This is old material for him. This is tired material for him, but it's also true to character. When somebody has very little to run on in terms of a positive message for this country, what I think he goes back to are his old tricks, which are racist tropes and trying to continue to just sow division among people who, frankly, are probably ready to move past a lot of that.
John, let's hear you react, because, I can never predict this man, and, he'll do things like this, but why would he do it in this setting? Yeah. My goodness.
I don't know. I can't answer that. I mean, I will give him credit for showing up and speaking with this group. Kamala Harris didn't even show up in person to this group. And so I give him props for doing that, because I see so many politicians that won't show up and talk to, quote unquote, the opposition. Now, why he made those comments, I don't know. Because we all know in different environments, we will talk about different things. I will talk in one group about where I grew up and what I learned there versus, living in Utah right now and other things. It depends on the audience. And so, she's part Indian, part black. I don't think she's hidden either of those from people over the decades. Yeah. But speaking to one audience about one issue and speaking to a different, it doesn't mean you're a chameleon. It just means you're relating with them about the issues that are important to them.
Yeah, I'm English and Irish. I've got heritage from both.
Yeah.
Which are you today?
Yeah, John. On the
what are your thoughts?
I just have to add, though, it is a really complicated issue. As a person who is mixed race, right? Mm-hmm. So I am Iranian American. I present as very white. And there are lots of places in which I've been told I'm not Iranian enough to be that. I'm also been told I'm not white enough to be white, right? So this really does tap into an issue, I think, that hits for a lot of folks that felt disturbed by it, but also kind of felt called out in the sense of never really fitting in one place or another.
Yeah. I just think it's stunning. You asked my reaction, John. I come from a basic belief that we're all, children of a loving Father and Mother in heaven, that we're all family. And I don't really take note about race, ethnicity.
And you know me, I'm a policy person. So let's go debate the policy, because there's plenty of policy issues you can talk about.
I've been wanting to ask you this, though. So the vice president, Kamala Harris, is making the point that she's got a stronger border background and, policies than the former President Trump had. Did you think they should have passed the border bill that was put forward?
No, I think...
thought you might say that. Now, why is that? Because I'm sitting here thinking they have to act, they have to do something. Instead, they don't do anything. And I don't let perfect be the enemy of the good, and it was good enough for me.
Okay. And I would say it wasn't good enough for me, but it was something that was a good framework that you could build off of and come together. You had 3 people put this together. Now it was out in the public. You should have brought more people along to say, okay, what are the weaknesses? So my problem is the Republicans dismissed it out of hand. The overwhelming majority dismissed it out of hand and killed it, rather than saying, I like this part of it, I don't like that part of it, how do I fix it? One of the things I didn't like was it codified catch and release. And it had this bizarre thing that said, okay, we're going to shut down the border if a certain number of people come across the border. So you're allowing a certain number of people to come across the border, but you're only shutting it down for 270 days out of 365 or 180 days out of 365. And it's like, well, none of that makes sense to me. But there was a good framework to work from.
Yeah.
Shireen, just in our last bit here, what would you say?
I mean, I think that Republicans have shown, unfortunately, repeatedly that they're unserious about solving this issue or wanting to keep it as a festering problem for political points. That is not going to help move us forward. And I do think she's probably right.
Let's take a brief break and let's talk Olympics in the second segment. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Natalie Gochner with Shireen Gorbani and John Dougal. Stay tuned.
You're listening to Both Sides of the Aisle on Utah Public Radio. We love to hear from listeners like you. If you would like to send us a comment, email bsotapodcast@gmail.com. That's bsotapodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Shireen Gorbani on the left.
John Dougal on the right.
I'm Natalie Gochner, and this is the Political Center, and I'm excited to talk about the Olympics. I've had this experience.
2023 or 2034 can't come. Can't come.
I love the games, but I go home at night. I love to cook for my husband, sometimes my kids, and I often turn on the news. I'm working all day. I turn on the news, and it's been so refreshing to not turn on the news and instead have all these inspiring stories about the joy of sport and competition and these athletes. I'm loving this.
Do you have a favorite sport? Summer.
Well, in the winter games, I'm more inclined towards the winter games. I would say summer of track and field.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of fun. And I think the women's gymnastics is incredible, and I've loved the swimming. So
yeah.
I'm a kind of all seasons person, I guess, when it comes to that.
Yeah.
How about you and John?
Well, I also love gymnastics. I feel a particular... I've been enjoying some of the new stuff. I think the breakdancing is cool. I feel like
It's called break.
Break. I think that's great. I don't know. I like that there have been some changes. The mountain biking was cool. We got a Utahn is bringing home a bronze in that, which I think is really exciting. I think it's silver actually. Silver.
Was it silver?
So I just love watching people who are excellent achieve excellence.
Yeah. John, favorite Olympic sport, or is it inspiring you as much as it is? I mean, is this
I haven't seen a lick of Olympics. So
wow, because you're busy.
I'm busy. I don't get over the air TV, so I don't have any station that's got it.
He's saying he doesn't have cable and he doesn't stream.
Yeah, I don't
or
have
something.
cable. Cable's too expensive. I have nothing to stream. I don't have Peacock, and I don't get Channel 5. I think it's NBC, right? So I don't get Channel 5. So yeah, no, I haven't seen anything of Olympics. In fact, over the weekend, my daughter said, "Can you get us set up to watch gymnastics?"
I need you to go to Best Buy, John, and spend $35 to get on-air TV that's free of charge. That you just hook up to the back and have some
The problem I have
rounders.
is where I live with the mountains in the shadow.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
Okay. In Murray, I get it. I got free broadcast
but
media.
where you're at, you get a straight shot. But sports, I really like water polo, but that's because I played water polo in high school. And I get, it's one of those, things that most people don't understand. They don't watch.
So let's make this transition from Olympics and all the positivity and everything, and then to tweeting.
Oh, okay.
And the idea...
I've seen tweets about the Olympics.
Yeah. Well, and I really recommend people read the Salt Lake Tribune editorial about politicians who should think before they tweet, essentially is what it's saying. But it starts with some of the things...
Why would you want them to do that?
In the Olympics related to opening ceremony and the Last Supper versus the feast.
Yeah.
The Olympics and the athlete from Algeria.
Yes.
A female-born
boxer
that has been lit up for being trans and in the boxing world.
Well, and to be clear, to be openly trans in Algeria is a death sentence. So these kind of accusations have real, very serious implications. And she is a female and has, I would say, an increased threat level of threat of violence.
Well, and then just to take it just a little bit more, so then you also have Mike Lee, who tweeted about Jimmy Carter's passing when it hadn't happened because of the news source he was looking at. And then we had Sim Gill, after the assassination, say something that a dead body would be better than this president. Yeah. Ooh, that's regrettable.
I mean, days after the assassination attempt.
Yeah.
Nobody knew which dead body he was talking about. Therefore, it was just...
Yeah. Well, so this editorial makes the point that there's a lot of hypocrisy about our elected officials complaining about social media and then what they do with it themselves.
Yeah.
So quick commentary, you two.
You saying they're addicted?
This is my thing. I would just be much more careful. And I would think about, is that really the choice of communication that I want to use?
Yeah.
The challenge, I think, is it's a symptom of people aren't really reading in depth and they don't want a detailed narrative. They want a one sentence.
Yes, no nuance, no context.
No.
Grab my attention with this ultra short sentence or less, pithy kind of thing. That's what sells. And so that's what they're trying to give them to get attention. And we see too often there's a blowback at the same time they're preaching.
You make the point.
Stop using it.
You make the point that it's the Olympics. And what are they tweeting about? They're not congratulating our athletes. They're talking about all the social things out there.
Yeah, and I would say this is really pointed at some of our Republican leadership, right? Cox participated in this. Certainly the Speaker of the House also. I feel like a friend of mine noted that really the only tweets that he's had about the Olympics are leaning into controversy. And there really is so much to celebrate. I would say, I think this is right? When I have personally gotten off of Twitter. I still use Instagram. I took Facebook off my phone. I don't really engage in other platforms. And what I have found is that it's improved my life. And I don't actually think, as much as politicians, I think only a few listen, you will be surprised to know your opinions, honestly, are often adding almost nothing to the conversation. Do the work, meet with your community, build relationships with folks. The hot take that you have about X, Y, or Z, my life is improved not seeing it. Or I would suggest to others that, and also I participated in this. A big part of fundraising, a big part of developing name ID in the state is being aggressive on these. And I mean aggressive in the sense of posting regularly, being on top of things, being on top of current issues, having a take on things. But I don't think that we should reward that currency. I think it doesn't serve the public well. And it creates, I think, a sense of embedded, entrenched disagreement that is unproductive for what Utahns actually need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's not just, I would say, not just social media. We'll see it when it comes to just mainstream media. If it bleeds, it leads. And you start seeing the headlines are designed to grab people. People don't actually read the articles. They're just looking at the headlines, and it's all being driven by that. You're even seeing reporters who are trying to do quick response. I gotta get something out before I've really even digested it. And it's culturally, they're just delivering what we're demanding. Yeah. So culturally,
and then you're
it's a problem.
Getting this tit for tat, and we're seeing it even still with Phil Lyman, the candidate for governor who lost in the primary, won in the convention. John, remind us what he's doing. I consider Phil a friend. I don't understand what he's doing right now.
Well, so he is contesting the election in various forms and so forth. He's wanting to see signatures. He's reported in the press to have received 60% of this quote unquote signatures. And when I say that, I don't mean the actual signatures. I mean the names of the people who signed the signature packets on behalf of the governor, but 40% or so were withheld for certain reasons, allegedly for privacy. So he's contesting whether or not Cox was appropriately on the ballot. He's questioning the lieutenant governor in terms of the whole process and oversight, especially when she's on the ballot with the governor.
He's using the term malfeasance.
Yes,
in office.
Just filed something with the Supreme Court a few days ago, alleging malfeasance, wanting them, the governor and lieutenant governor, removed from office, and President Stuart Adams, to be put in place as, if you will, the acting governor, because he's next in line.
Yeah.
I mean, and for a lot of folks, they're scratching their heads wondering, what?
Yeah. If I was in the governor's office or, part of the campaign, I would be telling Governor Cox to ignore this. I would be telling him to govern and share your message of where you're leading this state. I would not be, taking this on head to head. I noticed that the governor's campaign, after the latest news from Phil Lyman broke, they talked about, this, we're not a banana republic, and had a strong statement of, reacting, which just puts this in the news one more time and then has one more rebuttal. And this is a time when I think the differences are so clear between what these candidates are saying and doing that the governor should just ride into the future with his vision and let Lyman just go.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not good.
Instead of feed the beast.
Yep. Instead of feeding the beast.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't have much to say about it other than I do think these continued attacks that undermine democracy are not good.
Yeah.
No,
and in Utah, we're supposed to have something different about us here.
Yeah. And now I would say we need to step back and look our election processes. There's sometimes the clerks are like, don't you trust us? And I've reminded them for about 15, 16 years, our election system is built on the ability to verify, not just trust. It's nice that I can trust you, but we need verification. And so there are certain gaps, it appears, in the process where you can't have that verification process. And that
Okay,
that
but
also,
I would also just, I have to add, there's also just a huge misunderstanding, because often when candidates or folks get to go and look up close and understand the original vote count, the canvassing that happens afterwards, the work that is done to try to verify signatures, all of that, they often change their tune. In this case, Lyman is not.
Mm-hmm. Shireen, how long are we going to be able to have legal abortions in this state? We had some big news in the last week.
Yeah, so some big news, and I'm not speaking on behalf of my employer here, just speaking as myself. I think this is a really important case. So what happened this last week is the Utah Supreme Court said that the injunction, which basically means a pause on what we have in the state, which is a few years ago, a near total abortion ban passed in the state. After the fall of Roe, the Dobbs decision, it did go into effect. There were very, very limited exceptions here for rape or incest and for health of the mother, fetal abnormalities, but they're so narrowly written or require a police report that it basically is a total ban. It went to court. The Utah Supreme Court had to make a decision on whether or not the pause on implementing that bill should continue.
What was the rationale for the pause?
So the rationale for the pause is that there would be significant harm caused to Utahns should they not be able to make these decisions about their health. And it was outlined under a number of serious considerations that the Utah Supreme Court believes that we should be looking at, that the courts should be looking at, around the right that we have to bodily integrity that's in our state constitution, the right to determine the size and makeup of our family, there are a number of rights that are enumerated for us as Utahns. And what the Supreme Court said is that should be seriously considered as this process moves through the court.
And really what they were saying was Planned Parenthood has standing. And may be able to make a credible argument.
So you can't.
Now this is about just the injunction. And not actually what the Constitution says, what the rights are. And
that goes down.
It's got to go back to the district court and litigate
And how
that.
long do we think this could take?
Well, it took a year from essentially when the Supreme Court heard this argument about the injunction to when they issued their opinion.
Wow.
So this will take years.
Yeah.
And the legislature will
John,
be highly agitated and highly concerned about this state, because the Supreme Court basically said there's little harm to the state. And you're going to have legislators saying, well, but there's going to be harm to the unborn children that are aborted during this process.
So we have a Supreme Court that's now taken on, what the legislature would like 2 times in a row on 2 big things, redistricting and on abortion. It doesn't get any more serious than those 2 things.
And there was dissent in this. The Chief Justice dissented in his opinion.
Yeah, and dissented only on the issue of standing, not on all of the other reasons that this should be seriously considered.
We've
The
got
issue on standing, whether as third party or in public interest, Planned Parenthood could stand in for citizens versus Planned Parenthood.
For patients.
They didn't question Planned Parenthood standing in and of itself.
Right.
We have less than a minute on the program and the economy.
Yeah.
We've got a stock market that
This is Monday
cratering.
afternoon.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are we in a recession?
Down.
Yeah, I just am looking at this and I'm going, we have 4.3% unemployment. We're still growing. We're still envy of the world, the U.S. economy. I just think everybody should chill and, not
This is about an
overreact.
issue right now, or it's just about the presidential election, and people are concerned about that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was some bad employment reports and then what happened in Japan, and it was a contagion, and people are worried about the U.S. economy, which has been holding up, the economy globally, and we'll see where it goes. But I'm telling you, this is not COVID. This is not the Great Recession. I think we're going to be okay. That's my take. Hey, great program today. Natalie Gochner with Shireen Gorbani and John Dougal. Our program is produced by Anthony Scoma. Thanks for listening.